Our topic today deals with the role of prayer and the role of actions in bringing about the desired outcome. I have had many people who have approached me and have asked the question, what's the role of prayer? I have a vision that I want to accomplish. I want to go out in the country and fast so that God can help me bring about what I want. I've also had some who have said, this is what I want to do. What are the action steps that I need? And then I would say to them, have you prayed about it? Then they'll say something like, I haven't, because I'm not sure that there's prayer in what I want to do. So I want us to discuss the question, what's the role of prayer, if any? And what's the role of action, if any, when you have something that you want to accomplish as a person? The question is prayer and actions, which one works? I think it will be important for us to mention upfront and without being ambiguous about it, that God, because he is all-powerful, as we read in the Bible, and that because he knows nothing that's impossible, he can bring about anything he wants. So I think a more direct answer would be, just like God worked with the Israelites when he told them to march around the walls of Jericho without doing anything, just march, blow the horns, march, blow the horns. And on the final day, he brought down the walls of Jericho. He can do anything he wants. But the question I want to ask is, at the practical level, and I know you might be asking the question, what do you mean at the practical level? I mean, at the day-to-day activities, that which we experience every day, how should we approach prayer and actions? First of all, I would like us to go to the same book, the Bible, to get an answer or to get an illustration of how very strong men and women have approached this matter. And the one who I want to take is the prophet Nehemiah. Nehemiah the leader. Nehemiah said something that's very important that I think is critical for us to analyze to deal with this subject. In Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 20, Nehemiah said, our God will fight for us. Now just note, this is Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 20, where he says, our God will fight for us. And keep in mind what I said. God has the ability to do anything without us. But let's now understand, what did Nehemiah mean when he said, our God will fight for us? This is verse 20. Look at what he did after he had stated that our God will fight for us. Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 21 to 23. So we labored at the work, and half of them held the spears from break of dawn until the stars came out. I also said to the people at that time, let every man and his servant pass the night inside Jerusalem, so that they may be a guard for us by night and may labor by day. So neither I, nor brothers, nor my brothers, nor my servants, nor the men of the guard who followed me ever took off our clothes. Each one kept his weapon in his right hand. So here are two passages that almost contradict each other. In verse 20, he said, our God will fight for us. But from verse 21 to 23, he describes what they were doing to make sure that they were not defeated or conquered by the enemies. The context of the story in Nehemiah is that there were some enemies, Sanballat, and Tobias, who wanted to frustrate the work of Nehemiah in rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. But Nehemiah told his people, our God will fight for us. But after he tells them that, he then says, don't take off your clothes. Ask the guards to be on duty 24/7. We ourselves will be working 24/7. Stand here, stand there, stand there. Make sure the enemies don't come in. So almost like he's contradicting himself. And so we prayed and we stationed guards. So the issue is, what's the understanding of the role of God and the role of man, the role of faith and the role of actions? The great preacher Charles Spurgeon summarized it in this way: the Christian should work as if all depended upon him, and pray as if all depended upon God. Now, this is almost a contradiction, but this statement is true of what Nehemiah did. The Christian should work as if all depends upon him. That's when Nehemiah put on their clothes, told the workers to watch day and night, and yet he depended on God. What this would mean is, depending on God does not mean you don't do anything about it. As a matter of fact, the highest form of depending on God could be you're doing everything in your power to make sure that what you want to happen happens. Now, I would like to share what one of my best authors has commented on this, Ellen White, in the book Education, page 214. In our labor, we are to be co-workers together with God. He gives us the earth and its treasures, but we must adapt them to our use and comfort. I want you to notice here, God gives us the earth and its treasure, meaning the earth and everything that it contains. But we must adapt them to our use, meaning when God gives us the earth, let's say soil, let's say he gives us trees, let's say he gives us gold, he gives us all these things. They are given to us, but it's up to us to adapt them to our use. She further says, God causes the trees to grow, but we prepare the timber and build the house. In other words, the fact that God has prepared trees or given people trees, forests, does not make God go start cutting trees. God expects the man to go and cut trees, to go and make blocks, to go and do the things he needs to do to construct a house. Listen to what she further says on the same page. He has hidden in the earth the gold and silver, the iron and coal, but it is only through toil that we can obtain them. The same point I was making. Then she says, while God has created and constantly controls all things, he has endowed us with a power not wholly unlike his. To us has been given a degree of control over the forces of nature. Let me explain this statement. This statement is saying, while God has created and constantly controls all things, he has shared with humanity the power of control. To us has been given a degree of control over the forces of nature, meaning we can control how things should end because he has given us that power. And God called forth the earth in its beauty. As God called forth the earth in its beauty out of chaos, so we can bring order and beauty out of confusion. What this means is the world and all the nature it can contain, all the minerals, all the things may be placed on earth in a chaotic manner. The trees are there, but we are to bring order out of those. This statement is an interesting one. When God opens the way for the accomplishment of certain work and gives assurance of success, the chosen instrumentality must do all in his power to bring about the promised results. in proportion to the enthusiasm and the perseverance with which the work is carried forward, will be the success given. God can work miracles for his people only as they act their part with untiring energies. Here are two very, very great spiritual leaders who have given the same point. Charles Spurgeon, the first quotation I gave, basically said the Christian should do everything on their part as if it depends on them. On the other hand, depend on God as if everything is dependent on God. Ellen White has said the same thing. God can work miracles for his people only as they act their part with untiring energies, meaning work as if it depends on you. On the other hand, trust as if everything depends on God. St. Augustine the Hippo said this statement: pray as though everything depended on God. Work as though everything depended on you. When you look at this statement, pray as though everything depended on God. Work as though everything depended on you. What do you get? Let me put it this way. In the Christian realm, meaning this is not even stepping out of Christian faith, when you believe that God has put a vision on your heart, a task on your heart, something to accomplish for him, and you are so convinced, whether you are convinced or you are not convinced that it's from the Lord, but if you have a plan and that plan needs to be executed, and you are a person of faith, you should pray as if everything is dependent on God to bring it about. Pray, fast, pray, but don't stop there. Start working as if everything is dependent on the actions you are going to do for it to come to fruition. This is the only way that works. Rarely does God come up absolutely just from nowhere, says, even if you don't work, I'm just going to bring about the fruits. When you study the Bible carefully, when it comes to instances of God has sent his people, those people depend on God fully, but they also put in all they can within their means as human beings to bring about the results of what God wants. So I would like to close by simply challenging you to say, pray as if everything depended on God. Act as if everything is dependent on you. You will have success that you've never had before when you use this formula of addressing how to accomplish great things in life. Thank you and blessings.